So welcome to you both. Thank you for being here. Keith, what are some basic lessons that you have learned while working with Vietnam-era veterans?
I started at the VA in 1985, and by 1989, the VA, in its infinite wisdom, decided that they should do something for Vietnam veterans who were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. It took them way too long to do something.
We really had to suffer through this almost decade of neglect that happened from, I would say, from 1974 to 1984, that period of time, where there was very little help for veterans. There was no program, there was no such thing as PTSD, there was no recognition of Agent Orange exposure, there was nobody anxious to hire veterans. It was really a bad time, and that was a crucial decade. By the mid-'80s, almost a third of those who were homeless on the street were veterans, even though they're barely 11% of the population. A third were homeless. And so that sort of woke us up a little bit.
And do you think the VA has, how would you rank their performance in the way they treat Vietnam veterans?
Early on, the VA did a horrible misservice to its Vietnam veterans. I think things are way better now. We've developed a bunch of new treatments for war-related stress at the VA, things like prolonged exposure and cognitive processing therapies, which are helpful. I think that the most important component of providing services is creating a safe and secure environment for people's stories to be heard.
A lot of terrible suffering was at war. And that's what we know, and that doesn't go away. I wish I could make that go away, and it hasn't, right? It's still there, and we still have a lot of work to do.
PTSD tends to be a waxing and waning condition, and with really, really good support, you can manage it and you can do well. And I think that that's especially true for people who have experienced a great deal of trauma, a lot of combat.
All right, and I see there are a lot of people here who want to talk to you, so let's go ahead and go to the audience.
I'm Bob Swanson, Vietnam veteran. I was in 1965. I was aboard the USS Bennington, headed to Vietnam. What is it going to take to get the VA to recognize medical cannabis as a legitimate help aid for our veterans coming back with PTSD? Thank you.
I have a lot of patients over the years that have used marijuana to help with symptom relief, to help go to sleep, to decrease nightmares. I think that really what it'll take are more and better randomized controlled trials. And if we have good science, then I think you'll see more and more people in the medical community advocating for marijuana to be used. But we need the science.
All right, Michael Blecker and Keith Armstrong, thank you both for being here tonight. And so for our next segment, we are going to focus on the period of anti-war activism, and we have a couple of wonderful panelists to introduce you to. The first is Eva Jefferson Paterson. Paterson is the president and a co-founder of the Equal Justice Society. Eva, come up. And our second guest for this segment is Will Kirkland. He is a United States Naval Academy graduate, class of 1965, who became an anti-war activist and a union organizer with the United Farm Workers. Will Kirkland. Welcome to you both. How are you connected to the military, Eva?
Well, thank you for having me here, and it's nice to see the veterans. My dad was in the Air Force, and he served in Vietnam from '66 to '67. He was in Cam Ranh Bay and Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base. And when he came back, he said, we shouldn't be in Vietnam. We're ruining the culture. We should not be there. That notwithstanding, I entered Northwestern in 1967, completely supporting the war.
And Will, for you, did you serve in Vietnam as well?
I did. I was, as you said, class of 1965, United States Naval Academy, son of class of 1943, United States Naval Academy, brother 1969 United States Naval Academy. So I was up at Yankee Station. I was one of the youngest officers of the deck. Machines all over, loud noises. All that was amazing. But when I saw the fighter attack planes take off from the decks of the carriers, all I could imagine was what those bombs were doing.
So you thought it was immoral, that the killing was immoral.
I'm not sure I put it in moral or immoral. I was extremely uneasy about my participation in doing something that I thought was wrong. And as a result of that, my parents and I didn't speak for 7 years. Navy veterans, son in the military.
Will, you opposed the war from the beginning. Eva, you supported it initially. What was the turning point for you?
It was gradual. And over time, I saw that Nixon had a chance to bring the war to an end, and he didn't because he wanted to win the election. There are all kinds of points when our politicians could have stopped it and saved people from being killed, and they didn't.
And so when you decided to oppose the war, what did you both hope your opposition to the Vietnam War would accomplish?
We hoped it would stop the war. And I'm looking at the veterans, and I'm thinking about all of you who were doing your duty, but we were lied to. And so we saw napalm, we saw body bags, and we wanted to stop it. We drew on the notion of the abolitionists during slavery times who stood up and said no, 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 no. And ultimately, as a result of a civil war, things stopped.
We get set on these paths in which, at the end, the bombs start falling. So how do we move out of that? What other means are there to solve our problems? And mine was the kind of Gandhian nonviolence. Not to be a pacifist, but figure out ways to say, this is important to me, I know that's important to you, what do we do now?
Hi, my name's Arnold dos Santos. I live here in Alameda, grew up in Alameda. With regards to Vietnam, I was honored to serve my country on behalf of the South Vietnamese people. And I lost a lot of friends over there. And I'm telling you, the South Vietnamese people fought valiantly. They had a cause. You may couch it in the terms of maybe our own Civil War, where you thought that was somewhat justified. Well, in a sense, Vietnam was a civil war between the communists in the north and the South Vietnamese who were looking for liberty and democracy.
Will, Eva?
I saw, first of all, and I don't mean this to sound hokey or like it's BS, but thank you for your service. And I guess I don't have a simplistic answer, but where I was standing at the time, it looked like our leaders were lying to us. So maybe there's just a difference of opinion, and the whole purpose of today is to listen. I'm going to think about what you said. I hope you'll think about what I said.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Eva Paterson and Will Kirkland, thank you both. So on behalf of the USS Hornet and on behalf of KQED, thank you all for being here. Thank you.